The monarchs of France ruled from the establishment of the Kingdom of the Franks in 486 to 1870. The first dynasty of kings was the Merovingian dynasty, which ruled until 751, followed by the second dynasty, the Carolingians, until 987. The third dynasty, the Capetians, the male-line descendants of Hugh Capet, ruled France continuously from 987 to 1792 and again from 1814 to 1848. The branches of the dynasty which ruled after 1328, however, it generally given the specific branch names of Alois and Bourbon, with the House of Bonaparte and the Bourbon Restoration. Additional kings of the French and emperors of the French ruled in 19th-century France, between 1814 and 1870. This article lists all rulers to have held the title King of the Franks, King of France, King of the French, or Emperor of the French. For Frankish monarchs, see List of Frankish kings. The style of the title used is detailed in the article on style of the French sovereign. For a short time, this had some basis in fact, under the terms of the 1420 Treaty of Troyes. Charles VI had recognized his son-in-law Henry V of England as regent and heir. Henry V predeceased Charles VI, and so Henry V's son, Henry VI, succeeded his grandfather Charles VI as King of France. Most of northern France was under English control until 1435, but by 1453, the English had been expelled from all of France save Calais, and Calais itself fell in 1558. Nevertheless, English and then British monarchs continued to claim the title for themselves until the creation of the United Kingdom in 1801. The title, King of the Franks, gradually lost ground after 1190, during the reign of Philip II and after the July Revolution in 1830. The style, King of the French, was used instead of King of France. It was a constitutional innovation known as popular monarchy which linked the monarch's title to the French people rather than to the possession of the territory of France. In addition to the Kingdom of France, there were also two French empires, the first from 1804 to 14 and again in 1815, founded and ruled by Napoleon I, and the second from 1852 to 70, founded and ruled by his nephew Napoleon III. They used the title, Emperor of the French. Merovingian dynasty. The Merovingians were a Salian Frankish dynasty that ruled the Franks for nearly 300 years in a region known as Francia in Latin. Beginning in the middle of the 5th century, their territory largely corresponded to ancient Gaul as well as the Roman provinces of Rhaetia, Germania Superior and the southern part of Germania. The Merovingian dynasty rose to historical prominence with Childeric I, the son of Merovech, leader of the Salian Franks. But it was his famous son Clovis I who united all of Gaul under Merovingian rule. Carolingian dynasty. The Carolingian dynasty was a Frankish noble family with origins in the Arnulfing and Pippinid clans of the 7th century AD. The family consolidated its power in the late 8th century, eventually making the offices of mayor of the palace and dux a princeps Francorum hereditary and becoming the real powers behind the Merovingian kings. In 751, a Carolingian, Pepin the Younger, dethroned the Merovingians and with the consent of the papacy and the aristocracy, was crowned king of the Franks. Robertian dynasty. The Robertians were Frankish noblemen owing fealty to the Carolingians, and ancestors of the subsequent Capetian dynasty. Odo, Count of Paris, was chosen by the Western Franks to be their king following the removal of Emperor Charles the Fat. He was crowned at Compiègne in February 888 by Walter, Archbishop of Sens. Carolingian dynasty. Charles, the posthumous son of Louis II, was crowned by a faction opposed to the Robertian Odo at Reims Cathedral, though he only became the effectual monarch with the death of Odo in 898. Robertian dynasty. Those honored dynasty. The Beauharnais were a noble family descended from Bosso the Elder. Their member, Rudolph, was elected King of the Franks in 923. Carolingian Dynasty. Capetian Dynasty. After the death of Louis V, the son of Hugh the Great and grandson of Robert I, Hugh Capet was elected by the nobility as King of France. The Capetian dynasty, the male-line descendants of Hugh Capet, ruled France continuously from 987 to 1792 and again from 1814 to 1848. They were direct descendants of the Robertian kings. The cadet branches of the dynasty which ruled after 1328, however, it generally given the specific branch names of Alois and Bourbon. Not listed below are Hugh Magnus, eldest son of Robert II, and Philip of France, eldest son of Louis VI. Both were co-kings with their fathers, but predeceased them. Because neither Hugh nor Philip were sole or sire king in their own lifetimes, they are not traditionally listed as kings of France, and are not given ordinals. Henry VI of England, son of Catherine of Valois, became titular King of France upon his grandfather Charles VI's death in accordance with the Treaty of Troyes of 1420. However, this was disputed and he is not always regarded as a legitimate King of France. From the 21st of January 1793 to the 8th of June 1795, Louis XVI's son Louis Charles was the titular King of France as Louis XVII. In reality, however, he was imprisoned in the Temple throughout this duration, and power was held by the leaders of the Republic. Upon Louis XVII's death, his uncle Louis Stanislas claimed the throne, as Louis XVIII, but only became de facto King of France in 1814. House of Capet, House of Valois, House of Lancaster, House of Alois, House of Bourbon. First Republic. The First French Republic lasted from 1792 to 1804, when its first consul, Napoleon Bonaparte, was declared Emperor of the French. House of Bonaparte, First Empire. Capetian Dynasty. House of Bourbon, Bourbon Restoration. House of Bonaparte, First Empire. Capetian Dynasty. House of Bourbon, House of Orleans, July Monarchy. Second Republic. The Second French Republic lasted from 1848 to 1852, when its president, Louis Napoleon Bonaparte, was declared Emperor of the French. House of Bonaparte, Second Empire. Later pretenders. Various pretenders descended from the preceding monarchs have claimed to be the legitimate monarch of France, rejecting the claims of the President of France, and of each other. These groups are Legitimists, claimants to the throne of France, descendants of the Bourbons, rejecting all heads of state 1792 to 1814, 1815, and since 1830. Unionists recognized the Orleanist claimant after 1883. Legitimist and claimants to the throne of France, descendants of Louis XIV, claiming precedence over the House of Orleans by virtue of primogeniture. Orleanist claimants to the throne of France, descendants of Louis Philippe, himself descended from a junior line of the Bourbon dynasty, rejecting all heads of state since 1848. Bonapartist claimants to the throne of France, descendants of Napoleon I and his brothers, rejecting all heads of state 1815 to 48, and since 1870. English claimants to the throne of France, kings of England and later, of Great Britain. Jacobite claimants to the throne of France, senior as general of King Edward III of England and thus his claim to the French throne, also claiming England, Scotland, and Ireland.